What's going on there, folks? Good evening. It's the Earthmaster here on this beautiful Thursday night, October 20th, 2022 date. It's about 9:11 p.m. California time out here along the west coast, and the latest earthquake activity out there spinning around. It looks like a 2.7 out here in the Big Island, or on the Big Island of Hawaii. Seeing a little bit of uptick in activity out there. All right, let's go ahead and look at the latest activity here from the USGS, showing some movement all across the map here today. A lot different than what we seen last night, obviously. Last night was a pretty lull in activity, but man, did that kick off in a big way. Of course, with that 6.7, 6.8, some magnitudes coming, or at least some models coming in with a 6.8 off the coast of Panama earlier, much earlier this morning. Things definitely got kicked into motion following that movement. Okay, Big Island of Hawaii, let's go ahead and check this out real quick. We're getting in on some activity out here. About 45 earthquakes listed up here on the Big Island, and also notice the swarm of activity returning to the northwestern flank. Now, this is not right at the summit, nor around the southeastern portion of the Mauna Loa, but up around the deeper levels. At least last time we've seen a lot of deep activity within this region. Looking at the variable of depths there, looking at anywhere between negative 2.3 down to about 5 kilometers deep around the Mauna Loa area. The majority of these consisting down there, even one right there at about 6 kilometers deep in that swarming activity. And that is down there where the magma is moving around. So we got another swarm of activity indicating some magma movement on the rise around the Mauna Loa volcano area. We'll check out the updated status here in just a second. The movement around the southeastern portion, southeastern area of Mauna Loa continues to swarm. Looking at some earthquake activity here within the last hour, even one down there at about 11 kilometers. The majority of these down about 30 to 35 kilometers deep, and that is very typical here for this area of Pahala on the Big Island, and definitely kicking up, including the Kilauea Volcano area around the crater region, seeing some earthquake activity today as well, 2.7, and also latest 1.9. Very shallow earthquake activity there at the Lava Lake region. All right, let's go ahead and check out the hazard notification system here from the USGS. In regards to the volcanic activity there on the Big Island, notice 1020. That was put out earlier today, UTC time of 1818, but of course earlier this morning there, Hawaii time. Kilauea Volcano. Now, this activity here that we're seeing on the map, the earthquake activity is prior. This update is prior to the earthquake activity, so they do not mention about these earthquakes there at the Kilauea Volcano. Let me see if I can zoom this in a little bit further. I know a lot of folks been complaining about the size of certain texts and stuff like that, so bear with me. I'm working with a completely brand new computer, brand new server, brand new system here, and it's huge on my side. So I got to remember that you know, what you guys are seeing may not be huge compared to what I see here on this end. So no major changes noted there at Kilauea Volcano. The latest informational statement here on Mauna Loa, currently not erupting, but the unrest continues, obviously. During the past 24 hours, the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory detected 46 magnitude earthquakes below 3.0, about 3 to 5 kilometers below the caldera. Both of these regions have historically been seismically active during periods of unrest, so things are moving around down there, folks. And obviously tonight the activity is continuing. Let me bring up the map here. Back to Hawaii. Obviously within the past couple hours here and throughout the last 24 hours, we've seen activity continuing there. And I have a feeling this is going to be making the news here really soon. One of the world's most active volcanoes out there. Just been a little quiet in terms of most recent history, right? About 1986 or 1984 was when the last activity happened here at Mauna Loa. But things may be popping off here in a big way. So we'll keep a watch on that. a 2.4 earthquake way up north here of Mauna Kea. This is kind of an odd area, very shallow earthquake at -1, so a surface feature earthquake out here. And kind of pay attention to these little oddball earthquakes out here in any different areas of the world. But this one here kicking off in a very strange spot north of Mauna Kea. Either way, I think it's definitely worth watching out there. The Big Island of Hawaii might be very active soon, and I'm talking a lot more than what Kilauea is putting on. All right, what have we seen since the Panama earthquake? Well, the USGS only showing a small, minor adjustment up here along the Middle America Trench, but the EMSC models, let me pull up the EMSC model, which is the current data here from the European data system here. Notice a pretty good swarm of activity up north here around the Middle America Trench, and some activity just due north of that 6.7 that struck this evening, or struck earlier this morning, I should say. There's a pretty good swarm of activity following that 6.7 there off the coast of Panama. 6.8. The EMSC is actually staying with the 6.8, so USGS 6.7, 6.8 for these guys. So pick and choose which is the right magnitude. Seen quite a few 4s kicking off there in that earthquake swarm, or aftershock activity, I should say. But I'm watching this area north here along the Middle America Trench. That's a area that has been seen activity. Of course, we had that larger earthquake activity off the coast of Mexico, and some regular movement, normal, typical plate movement here in this area over the past few months. So maybe there's just enough built-up strain here to possibly see some further activity within the Middle America Trench. Watching that pretty closely. Into the Caribbean area, Caribbean Sea, Puerto Rico region, quite a bit of swarming around the Puerto Rico area. Also up here around the Puerto Rico Trench, nothing within the last hour. South America remains relatively quiet. We'll get to California here in a minute. Notice here along the Tonga area, 4.9. Solomon Islands, a 4.6. A lot of activity working its way around this region of New Zealand. And that's kind of concerning there. We've seen some deeper movement here into the area of the Hikurangi subduction zone. So let's go ahead and check this out on the EMSC model, because USGS just doesn't want to show it for whatever reason. So activity, well, it was right up here, I believe. I don't want to go way in there, but there's been some deeper movement around the North Island area, and that is the Hikurangi subduction zone, just south of the Kermadec Trench. And these guys showing quite a few earthquakes here over the last few hours or so around Tonga, also the Solomon Islands and the Kermadec Trench area. Let's see what this one is. I don't know if we got 1, 2, 3, 4.7 at 03:59 UTC time. So that was only about 20 minutes ago or so. USGS not reporting in on that third earthquake down here in the Kermadec Trench yet, but EMSC is, and that one looks a lot deeper. Let me see what that. Ooh, wow, 470 kilometers deep, folks. Getting in on some major deep movement here around the Kermadec Trench recently. And that's a lot of times when we see this deeper movement throughout the area, that's normally pointing to something much, much bigger about ready to happen, not only within this area, but also for some quiet zones up north. If we haven't seen a lot of activity in a certain area, and with some deeper movement down here in the southeastern portion of the plate, that's only putting much further strain up here along the Japan Trench and the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. We'll check out the possibilities up there in just a second, but this area lighting up like crazy. Again, the most recent one, a 4.9, some deeper earlier movement into the Tonga Trench at 294 kilometers deep for that 4.5, and a 4.5 here also. And a lot of same numbers out here. 611 kilometers deep. That's a super deep earthquake there. A lot going on below this level. I mean, if you really think about it, everything looks flat here. The ocean's nice and smooth when you're out on it. If you're out there on the Fiji Islands, everything looks level as can be. But everything is working its way down below this area. A lot of movement kicking up here in this region, and that plays a part on what goes on further, not only in this area of New Zealand, but also the general plate tectonic movement points towards the west-northwest area. Far as the, let me see if I can key this up here real quick. General plate movement. Normally I have this set up here. Movement here. There we go. See if I can bring up this map. I just typed it in here because I really wasn't planning on showing it, but I do want to show you guys here real quick. The general plate movement here is going to be this plate, this image here. I kind of like this image. I really do. I need to save it and bring it up in future. Oh, what I just do here? I just completely closed down the system here. So let me bring that up real quick. I closed down everything, completely everything. But bear with me. I'm kind of working on a new computer here again. So not another new one, but it's a new one to me for well, since the past couple years here. I've been working on the same computer. Okay, so here is the general plate movement. Notice the Pacific plate west-northwestward movement here. So when we're looking at a lot of deep activity here along the Tonga Trench, the Fiji area, Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, that ultimately shifts the plate further to the west-northwest, adding much more strain up here. This plate is huge. The Pacific plate is massive, and it's very dynamic in terms of the increasing pressure in certain areas when one section moves. And a lot of deeper earthquake movement down here recently, ultimately putting some areas here at high risk of a much larger earthquake, considering the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench hasn't seen any major earthquake movement on it in quite some time. And I've been saying that since, well, since the beginning of this year, that we need to watch the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench here for some mega quake possibilities. It's up there, and it's building. What it will take to trigger that, who knows? But it's something worth watching pretty closely, considering this movement here. And they still haven't listed up the most recent quake there. Deep earthquake movement. Watch the areas up here along the New Zealand area, the surface areas, because strain does build up pretty nicely within this region. Got to remember these deep earthquakes there. Movement downstream, ultimately winding up the pressure upstream. Same with the Cascadia, but Cascadia is a different monster. So also up here into the Japan Trench, this movement is a little concerning as well, because not only is this a major quiet zone, but it's also a major subduction zone in terms of really quickly accumulating stress buildup here. It's one of the highest stress slip rate stress areas in the world. Also down here in the Peru-Chile Trench as well, but it doesn't take a lot of time for buildup as far as stress goes within this region. And Japan has seen some sixes over the last couple years, and of course that mega quake back in 2011, but the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench hasn't. And that's an area we need to mark there pretty closely, considering this deeper earthquake movement into the Japan Trench as well. It shows that there's definitely adjustment going on up here, and it's not going away. It's definitely straining and building up pretty nicely in this area, unfortunately. All right, so further activity. Let me see what we got for the most recent, aside from those two. There's the deep one in Fiji. Indonesia has definitely been showing a lot of activity here recently, but this is a huge complex system of a mess of plate dynamics here. You got trenches all over the place. You got many different faults pushing and pulling and stretching all over the place. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but it is, and you can see it on the map. This whole area is just being stretched and pulled and warped, so to speak. They get more earthquakes, I think, anywhere in this area than anywhere else on the planet here. Over here around Bangkok, it looks like the Andaman Islands, 5.1 India region. That one coming in. That one was from last night, it looks like. So no further movement here, at least 4.5 and above. or 4.0 and above, I should say. The EMSC, let me bring up back the EMSC data. Make sure I don't close that again. That was just not cool. I just clicked exit, and sure enough, it closed down the entire thing. Duh. That's what happens, right? Okay, so what do we got? Where's our map? EMSC is a little slow. There we go. So looking at here, these guys aren't really showing anything either. There is a 4.0 there that did kick up just a few hours ago that the USGS is not showing within this region, and I hate that. I don't understand why they pull these quakes like that. So there is some movement going on here around the Java Trench. Deeper activity here. Notice up here along the Kuril-Kamchatka and Japan Trench, roughly about the same as what the USGS is showing. So no unusual earthquake movement up there yet, but man, is it building. I can only imagine the potential up there. All right, let's see what else we got here. Out in the southwest Indian Ridge, a divergent boundary type setup here. A little zipper, so to speak. Kind of looks like a zipper of the ocean. And that's pretty much what it is. It's a opening up here. It's a divergent boundary of the oceanic crust. And this is where we see the seafloor spreading and creating new land, so to speak, and pushing these plates apart. And when it pushes plates apart, it adds further strain in certain areas, so to speak. And in this case here, when these split apart, a lot of times we see further activity up here around the Mediterranean. Let's see what we got here. These kicked off here at about 1924. The Turkey area looks like it kicked off at 1014. Hold on a second here. Let me see what we got. A little bit of mix and match here. Some earlier earthquake activity and later movement, kind of playing in part with the movement up here in Turkey around this plate boundary. But still, I think we need to watch this area too for some potential movement following this activity out there along the oceanic crust, creating some pressure in certain areas. Okay, West Coast. Check this out real quick. Of course, we had the 4.3. Got a weird notification from the quake alert this morning time frame of a 4.5 magnitude, and just said that it basically was just a warning. But I'm a ways away from the Bay Area up here around Chico, but it got me. It triggered my phone with some guy's voice there saying that this is only a warning. And I've never gotten that, so kind of odd. I do appreciate the comments there that folks did chime in, that they got the same response there. Some folks around the Bay Area, San Jose, checking in. Got the quake alert notification. Okay, one earthquake up here around the Hayfork area. 1.7 now. That's pretty shallow at negative 0.9. I don't believe this has been reviewed. I wouldn't doubt it if this is readjusted and situated a little bit deeper into the area. Considering we've seen some deep movement down here earlier this morning into the Cascadia subduction zone, about 33 kilometers deep. Some movement outside of Chico around the Oroville area, 1.9 near Biggs, 33 kilometers deep as well. Get some deeper movement out here associated with all the tremor we've seen. A lot of tremor taking place over the past few weeks, mainly up north, but can't help but wonder the amount of strain up here around the Cascadia currently. 2.7 earlier this morning time frame, well south of Mount Lassen. And of course, a pretty good swarm that we've seen over the past couple days around the Clear Lake volcanic field. Looks like that has kind of died off a little bit. Got one earthquake. Hopefully we don't see earthquake activity kicking up here around Mount Konocti. But we did see a 1.4 near the Lakeport area, right underneath Clear Lake at about 14 kilometers deep. A little activity around Davis, it looks like, a 1.4. See if we got any suspicious activity going on here around the Long Valley supervolcano. Well, Mono Valley here, outside of Mono Lake, is swarming a little bit. A couple twos kicking off here. about 10 to 12 kilometers deep, some a little bit more shallower. Haven't really seen too much swarming around that area recently. Long Valley supervolcano, a couple small earthquakes around Mammoth Lakes, and also just outside the caldera around the airport area. And some movement outside of Tonopah around the Mina, Nevada area, 2.2. Ridgecrest filling in a little bit, and also over here around the, what do we got here? King Solomon's Ridge, near the Bodfish area, 1.0 and a 1.4. Garlock Fault structure looks pretty quiet for now. Southern California getting some offshore activity recently, including a 2.1 well off the coast of the Oceanside area. 22 kilometers deep. Now there is a couple different fault systems that run through here. Some thrust faults. And we did see a 3.8. That one coming in, looks like that was earlier this past evening. Late last night, it looks like. Some movement down here off the Elsinore fault system, the 1.3, the latest quake here on the map. No major adjustments or changes noted here at the San Andreas Fault, the southern segment. I'd like to keep a close eye on that, considering it is a major player in producing one of the world's, well, not one of the world's, but one of California's deadliest, largest earthquakes here, I'm sure, soon. No telling when. Movement up against the mountain ranges here in Utah once again, and Yellowstone National Park. Looks like a few quakes listed up here on the map. Let's go ahead and check out the Yellowstone Overview. There we go. And things kind of looking pretty active here throughout the last 24 hours. There's the 6.7, 6.8 there down in the off the coast of Panama earlier this morning. Some more other earthquake activity here localized in the very sharp, defined signatures here. Notice these earthquakes sparking up there a little bit. So no major changes to take note of here at Yellowstone. In fact, looks just like a typical small swarm that's been occurring for, well, about 6 or 7 weeks now. Been an ongoing event. If we were to bring up the last 30 days of all magnitudes, and that's pending if these guys even counted all of them. Last 30 days, only 477. I'm sure there's a lot more, but hey, at least they're counting a few of them. It takes these guys sometimes days to issue the magnitude and the location of these earthquakes that are occurring on these maps I just showed you. But hey, they're getting it. They're working on it, right? All right, what do we got? Oklahoma, Texas. Some scattered activity out there, nothing major to speak of. Eastern portion of the country, all pretty quiet. Alaska, about the same. This is very typical here of Alaska. Looks like Trident Volcano is starting to swarm a little bit again down here. If you remember, I think it was over a month now. Let's see what they got here. Yeah, there's probably a lot more earthquakes there than listed here around the Trident Volcano. They were having a pretty good swarm here over a month ago in this area. Looks like that is returning to the Trident Volcano area. Definitely keep an eye on that and see if there's any major changes there. Like I said, there's a lot stirring up here over the last 24 hours. We entered into that quiet period, and it seems like the weakest portion here, at least the one that was about ready to go, was around the Cocos Plate, the Nazca Plate boundary, and the Caribbean Plate boundary. Almost like a got a 3-plate section here is where that 6.7 struck earlier this morning time frame. And since then, things have really been unraveling, and got to watch that pretty closely. A lot of deep movement all over the place, and these quiet zones that we speak of a lot. Here's the 4.5 and above over the last 30 days. California, you know, California seems to have a complete shield over it, like it's invincible, like nothing's going to touch it. And I can't help but wonder why. You know, there's not a whole lot of movement out here along the west coast recently, and this is a 4.5 and above. Yes, we did get 2s and 3s and whatnot, and maybe some lower 4s on occasion, but California is just always left out. And I get it, it's not a subduction zone area, it's a different type of plate boundary here. compared to other areas around the Pacific Ring of Fire. But there's got to be buildup out here along the San Andreas Fault, the major plate boundary. Just I don't get it. It's all too quiet in terms of releasing anything. Maybe it's fused completely. Who knows? All right, let's see what we got for the tremor map here tonight. Let's see. There we go. Cascadia tremor going down there. Only 50 epicenters of tremor tonight. Oregon and outside of Washington, or outside of Seattle, it looks like. Going down there. Notice over the past, here's the, up here at the top is the charts going back to about 2010. Notice over the last year or so, we've seen these intervals of major tremors increase and get much closer together. So I'm kind of curious. It looks like we may be coming to an end of a long one, and it was a long one. We had quite a few tremors kicking up throughout the Pacific Northwest over the past week or so, a couple weeks actually. And I should say actually the past month and a half, because it's been pretty consistent in this area. So we should be entering into a quiet zone now. And then we should, we'll see how quick this picks up in terms of seeing much more tremor. All I know is these lines are getting much closer together, and that can only mean that the pressure is greatly increasing to the point of breaking out here along the Cascadia. We'll definitely watch that. All right, space weather. What do we got? Not a whole lot, but we will cover a little bit of activity. There is the coronal hole currently facing us completely, but notice the southward tilt here. It's on the southern hemisphere of the sun. Not going to be doing anything for us here on this planet, far as on our plane that we are on, but solar flare activity, 3126, is about the only sunspot that might give us a C flare, possibly. But looking at it, it does not show, let me zoom this up a little bit here, does not show a whole lot of potential at all. In fact, what do we got here for the flare activity? 25. Woo! All right. 25% chance of a C flare. Not a big deal. 1%, 1%, 1% on the rest of the categories there, unfortunately. And there's not a whole lot of development around the bend. I was looking at a potential sunspot here last night, but it looks like that is currently decaying, and not a whole lot of potential there. So we are entering into a quiet zone, folks, and it's been quiet. And this just kind of goes, I was kind of mentioning last night how sometimes solar weather activity goes hand in hand with earthquake activity, but this is one of those times. Yes, yesterday and the day before, pretty quiet earthquake activity and solar weather-wise. But a 6.8 popped up in one of our weakest, or at least one of our most built-up strain areas off the coast of Panama, and space weather has still been quiet. So, you know, I can't really think of that theory as being true. There's still a lot of stuff to look at, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. Because sometimes when we see some major flaring activity, the plates really get excited and there's a lot of earthquake movement. But it's been very quiet in the space weather department, and we had a pretty large earthquake, and things are still ramping up right now, you know, over the past 24 hours here around the globe, with solar weather being quiet. So it's hard to say that solar weather is directly related to plate dynamics here in terms of activity. Today is just one of those days. Major uptick all around the globe. Solar weather continues to be quiet. So we'll mark it up. Another one marked here on the list. I am keeping track of the activity, of course, and the solar weather relation in terms to earthquake activity. And we'll figure it out. We'll go down a few months, maybe a couple years, and compare the notes. Either way, a lot of activity out here, folks, around the Western Pacific. Watch the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. Watch that pretty closely, folks. It's on there. It's on my target list. Let's see, what else do we have? I think that's about it. No major changes at the volcanoes, and my computer is down, or at least as far as my volcano computer, currently still down. I'm waiting on a new power source. It's going to be here tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get a live stream up for the volcano activity. But no major changes noted at the Cascades or across the west coast or the Aleutian Islands. Kilauea, Mauna Loa, all still pretty much the same. Alright guys, I am going to jump off here. Have a good night. Stay safe out there, and let me get that globe back to normal. Like I said, I'm still kind of working on a new system here. What do we got? 2.5 on the EMSC model out there around the Indonesia area. Just be on guard, folks. I think a lot is coming right now. There's a lot of deep movement all over the place. And literally, that can only mean one thing, that there's something much bigger on the way. Deeper earthquake activity does tend to lead to some larger earthquakes. So just be prepared, stay safe, always have an earthquake plan out there. And we'll update you guys if anything major happens out there. Make sure you guys have the notification bell clicked here on YouTube. That way you guys can get updated. Have a good day, folks. Have a good night. Stay safe. We'll chat you guys sometime tomorrow on. Peace out.